I just think it's a good time to be a part of the movement. I'm finding more purpose in my work these days. I'm finding more purpose in the stories that I tell on air, and the people who narrate the game to you can look like the product on the floor. Like I just was like, okay, if we can't hoop, then we have to develop this other career path that we know we want to have.
Ooh.
Once you get a couple of games and you do well, people just give you a couple more.
We're at these schools, we're at these 4-year schools, like utilize the connections, like build relationships, like figure out, like you said, you was hurt.
And if you've got two really good baskets and you're splitting your energy, it seems like you're splitting energy, especially when I'm a student athlete. It was so funny. People are questioning, like, why are you taking your school so serious? I think for athletes, paying attention to style of play, like watch the team currently. Don't be afraid to do your research. Like, not having enough information is not an excuse in this day and age. I do believe that once you transfer the second time, you should have to sit.
Yeah.
I went to 4 different schools. I have 3 degrees. 2 of them are masters. So anybody who's listening, I can name you probably 6 or 7 off the top of my head of teams I've called. I'm like, she's coming off the bench. You hoop and you can get a bucket on the court and you're making money through NIL, cool. But are you also really smart? It can't just be about the money. It can't.
So many adults are putting kids at schools for their benefit.
I don't really believe in give the people what they want. Like, no, you're gonna get whatever I give you because it's my brand.
Did you know that I have 2 books? One called The Little Girl with Big Dreams. It's about an ambitious little girl who overcomes every no to say yes to a dream. The other is called Changing Lanes. It teaches you about the things that you learn from sport and how it translates to life after sport. Be sure to check these out at itsjustdifferentpod.com. Let's get to the episode.
Welcome to It's Just Different Podcast, where we bring on people who have been where you're trying to go and or have helped countless athletes get there. I'm your host, Ashley Roberts, author, podcaster. I just like to say serial entrepreneur. And we got another star on today, pro hooper, TV analyst, host, has her own business, continue to be involved in basketball, talk to your favorite athletes, has been in rooms with so many GOATs, so many people. Isis, what is going on?
Hi, friend. Thank you for having me. That was such a good introduction. I'm like, damn, I did all that. Okay.
Man, you out here killing the game.
Oh, hustlers. We're hustlers. You have no choice, no option but to go. So thank you for having me on.
I'm so excited. How are you feeling now that college basketball is over?
Oh my gosh. Rested. I literally have 5 days off between the whole March Madness and to the championship game in the first week of April. So it was nice to sit in my bed and be home. But just honestly feeling so honored to be a part of women's basketball. Obviously I played in it, so I was here a couple of years ago, but to see how it's grown, where it's grown, the different stars that are emerging, the constant records that are being broken by audiences. I had the ability to be there for Yahoo Sports, at the Final Four in Cleveland and reporting on the court, and just really thankful that there's so much investment going right now into a game that has given so much to me, that I've invested so much in. And so I'm just happy the rest of the world is seeing it and they're on the bandwagon. And it keeps going. WNBA draft was fantastic. It's some really awesome young women who have a chance to play in this amazing league that's only getting better.
Yeah.
I just think it's a good time to be a part of the movement.
Yeah, we're not gonna glaze over that with Yahoo Sports on the court at the Final Four. You just said you had 5 days off throughout March Madness, and you said I did a good job, but I just boom, 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 boom. We need to get into what you were actually doing. What were you doing throughout March Madness?
Yeah, so I worked with 6 different networks throughout March Madness. So I'm a freelance sports broadcaster. So I did 3 conference championships for CBS Sports as an analyst. So I did the Summit League in South Dakota, Conference USA in Alabama, and then the A10 women's basketball semifinals in Richmond. That's kind of how I started out March Madness. And March, because I consider March Madness from conference tournament to it's all the way through. It's one big landslide. And then once the tournament started, I worked with Yahoo. So our first week in Yahoo, we covered the first weekend of the tournament. So rounds 32, first rounds and then round of 32. Mm-hmm. We're just in our LA studio doing a bunch of preview shows, segments, different social media hits on different things. So any big storylines that popped up, always how the number 1, number 2 seeds are doing. It's different stuff like that. So I was working with Yahoo in LA with Ross Goldenwude, who does a lot of WNBA, NBA, sideline reporting, hosting, stuff like that. And then Cass Negley, who does writing for Yahoo Sports. So it was a really cool girls group, like great to be there. Second week of the tournament, we just did like remote reactions. And then I worked for Westwood One, went to the Sweet 16 in Albany. I had the South Carolina and Indiana game as a radio analyst, and then the Notre Dame Oregon State game as a radio analyst. Those teams that I followed all year, Notre Dame, South Carolina. So it was really good just to see it in person, to interview Raven Johnson after South Carolina won, Reagan Beers after Oregon State won. So Westwood One does a fantastic job on radio. And then I took a quick break from March Madness and went to the WBIT. So I worked the WBIT, which is the NIT, but now owned by the NCAA. And so I did the semifinals for that on ESPN2. Really enjoyed it. It was a really good tournament. They put it on and it felt like an NCAA tournament. Like it felt like the tournament was really important. These players still have played a ton of games. They've won, and people are trying to finish their career on a win, which some of them did. So Illinois women's basketball won the tournament this year. And then after that, I went to Cleveland, and I was there for the Final Four and championship game for Yahoo. We did, championship preview, Final Four preview, players to watch, talked about different concepts and storylines. And then did, a couple of post-game raps, just being there and saying, what the moment is at women's basketball, and talking about Dawn Staley and her excellence, and just, how she continues to be a role model for everyone, like players, coaches, parents. I feel like you watch Dawn Staley and just learn so much from her. It was a really good experience. Like everything was there in person, tons of hotels, tons of good food, and then tons of really good people to see. Like this journey has brought me so many different people, from players to coaches to, colleagues that also cover the game. So it was a really nice 5-6 weeks, like the most I've ever worked in one time, easily. I was like playing. I wasn't this tired. Like I'm exhausted. But I loved it. It was really good.
Yeah, man, I'm over here like putting notes in my phone because you said so much in one. Like, I got question after question after question. I do want to go into, because I was actually talking to somebody. You said something about the WBIT.
Yeah.
And okay, so you had WNIT, WBIT, and then the women's, obviously NCAA.
Right.
What's the biggest difference between WBIT and WNIT?
Yes, biggest difference is literally that the WBIT is in its inaugural season. So this was its first year.
Yep.
And it essentially was the NIT, and the NCAA just purchased it. So that's why it's become like the second best tournament you can play in, because the NCAA purchased it. So it's the Women's Basketball Invitational Tournament is what it is. So technically, in terms of hierarchy, like you're going to go with, normal March Madness and Division One, then you're going to go with the WBIT tournament, and then you go with the WNIT tournament is how it's supposed to be. And so that's the only difference. Like nothing else really has changed. The same teams are normally there who were the first, 4 out, get high seeds. You don't play at a regional site until you get to the semifinals. We did that at Hinkle Arena in Indianapolis. But that is the only difference. Great question, because I had the same one when I was like asked to work, and I'm like, okay, what is this? Like, what kind of teams are we seeing? Is it different than NIT? Are we competing with 2 tournaments?
Yeah.
Like, no. Yeah, yep.
Now, so I saw a good amount of teams this year elected not to play postseason. Why do you think that was?
Yeah. I don't know. I saw it a lot more on the men's side than I felt like I saw on the women's side, for sure. Sometimes I think it's just a pride thing, right? That people, their team's goal is to get to the NCAA tournament and call it a day. I'm not saying that shouldn't be the goal, but I also think that there's something to be said about playing in postseason, especially if you got a young team that you're trying to build. Hey, it's more time together on the court with these players to grow. If you've got an older team, maybe it's a chance for you to finish your season on a win, even though you're a senior, right? But I just think it's games. To me, I don't get it. I don't understand. I think unless from a financial standpoint, you're a school in which you can't financially support your team or program doing that, that would be the excuse. But otherwise, people, like, whether you can play and not play, as long as you've got roster players to go and play and you can, like, why wouldn't you play extra games in the postseason? It's a good experience for anyone. And the competition is good. People watch the WNIT. They watch the men's NIT, which Seton Hall won. They watch WBIT. They watch good games.
For sure. Now we went straight into what you're doing now. Like I want to go back to Isis. I want to walk through young Isis. You played at Syracuse. So played basketball at Syracuse. What did basketball, and you played overseas, but what did basketball, or what did life, not even basketball, what did life initially look like right when you were done?
Yeah, right when I graduated college, it was COVID. So I played 7 years of college basketball. Two of them, or a couple extra, were because of injuries in a transfer year. And so when I finished playing COVID, it was like, okay, people are playing. They're still playing overseas. My only goal in playing my 7th year of college basketball was to build a resume after I had experienced an ACL tear to go overseas. Like that was it. And so I just was like, I need this extra year at Siena to build the resume, to win, to hopefully make it through COVID and everybody be healthy, and then to be able to go overseas. And so I went overseas right after that to Germany, played a couple of months in Germany, then went to Greece, loved playing in Greece, came back home, really got into broadcasting over the summer, and then had I broadcasted throughout the fall and then went back overseas to Australia. Just felt like I wanted to play more. I wanted to go to a different country. Really enjoyed Australia. Like it was beautiful, and really enjoyed like my teammates in the local town I was in. It was like a small town and community, so everybody went to the basketball games. It was like an event kind of thing. And then I think after I finished Australia and I started getting into broadcasting and I started my business, I just was like, I'm finding more purpose in my work these days. You know, I'm finding more purpose in the stories that I tell on air and the people I can push forward in broadcasting and like how you push someone forward. And so I'm feeling like I find more purpose in my business and in broadcasting to where it doesn't always equate now to if I were to drop 40 overseas. You know, I think I'd be happier knowing that I was able to media train an athlete that crushed an interview, you know, or I helped someone
Yeah.
again to where they had an opportunity. So yeah, just finding more work in my more purpose in my work.
And you was done with overseas when?
I finished with overseas. Last time I played was May of 2023. So it's been
Okay,
about
so fresh, still
yeah,
fresh technically.
yep, still fresh, still fresh. I play all the time. I play
I
in
was gonna
like
say, do
league.
you miss it?
Well, yeah, I'm a hooper like at heart. So I play all the time. I feel like I'm starting like up with basketball training now. I've got my first slate of clients this week because I'd taken a break in March because I just wasn't home. So I'm excited to help some people just develop. Like this time of the year is so great to just get in the gym and work, you know, especially with AAU coming up. Got to fine tune some of those skills and then hopefully go and perform well in front of coaches. So
Yeah.
kind of my focus right now is like all my basketball training clients and like helping them get to where they need to go before, you know, we hopefully create some opportunities for them to go to school for free.
Yeah, no, I love that. Now you said that I think after your first year you came back home and you were doing some broadcasting. What did
Yeah.
that look like? Like how did you get into the broadcasting? There's a lot of athletes that want to get into broadcasting. So what did that look like for you?
Yes. One, let me say, like, oh, I love it so much. There is no more, like, no bigger joy I feel like I get these days than being on air, than analyzing the game, than teaching people who already know the game, than learning the game from others, connecting with athletes and coaches. So I love the fact that like the people who narrate the game to you can look like the product on the floor, can identify
Ooh.
with and then can tell the stories. That's really important to me. So I say it to say I love that hopefully people who are listening want to get into it. If you do, this is my sign. Like go and do it. It's the best thing ever. But I felt like I went to Syracuse, which is known as a sports broadcasting school. Literally, like that is what it is
Oh.
known. And so when I transferred there, I had no idea what it's called, the Newhouse School, and their sports broadcast program. I had no idea what it was. Like I went to Syracuse and made a basketball decision to go. And then I got there and they had talked about sports broadcasting. They said, we have this program, you can apply and go to grad school. It's like, okay. And so I just started paying attention more to like sports broadcasters. Like, what do they say during the games? Do I really understand it? Does it seem fun? Does it seem too hard? And then I had decided one day, like, nope, I'm just going to try it. So I sat with my teammate. Her name is Abby Grant. She was my teammate and my roommate. She honestly was like the nicest person on the team that wouldn't say no. And I was like, hey, can I get an hour of your day, like to sit and interview you? Like, I'm not going to interview you for a whole hour, but I'm going to sit and ask you questions because I want to see if I really like this. And I'm
Yeah.
going to come prepared. So I had a guy who came with a camera and filmed it. I had my questions prepared. I had a like exit game and I called it the ice box. That's like my running
Oh,
show.
I love it.
Yeah. And so I got dressed. I finished my interview with her and I literally like looked at the guy I was dating at the moment who like was behind me, kind of supported me. And I was like, this is what I'm doing. Like,
I
it's
freaking
this
love that.
Yeah. So after that, it just was about getting reps, like getting games. The year that I spent at Fordham, where I was injured, had an ACL tear, like that was honestly my best year broadcasting, because I was like, I didn't have anything else to do. I'm in New York. There are a ton of schools around. And by that time, I had gotten my Syracuse master's degree. So if I came to someone and was like, hey, can you put me on air? I want to analyze games. Like I had some reps for people to believe me. And so I was doing radio for Fordham men's women's basketball, ESPN Plus for their games, Columbia women's basketball I was doing games for, Fairleigh Dickinson. And so I was doing like 4 to 5 games a week, like
Are you serious?
while I was getting another master's degree at Fordham, while I was on a team rehabbing ACL injury. Like I just was like, okay, if we can't hoop, then we have to develop this other career path that we know we want to have.
Oh, talk about it.
Yeah, so God works in mysterious ways. I think I was injured at that point, at that space, for a reason. And then that really helped me solidify, like, okay, I want to work as a sports broadcaster. I want to do, basketball analyst, sideline reporting, stuff on digital and shows. And then I want to make sure that I get into other sports. But it solidified, like, if I wanted to make sports broadcasting the thing I only do all day for 6 months straight, I could do it, because I was so in love at that point. I was so in love with broadcasting.
Wow. So this is, and yeah, like, is this you just kind of reaching out? Like, for example, Yahoo, is that you reaching out to them like, hey, this is what I want to do? And then,
Yeah, great question. Great question. And I have been blessed, like, with so many good people along the journey. We could do a whole podcast on mentors, and people you need to meet in the industry to push you forward. But my main mentor is LaChina Robinson. And so I learned from LaChina, like, hey, I met her. She was actually being the television analyst for my game at Syracuse. We played Duke. And it was one of my best college games, because I knew I was about to meet her. And at that point, I had solidified, like, I want to do this. This is somebody I need to know, that can help push me forward. And so while I, got into like her broadcast program and kind of developed there, that's where I kind of made some connections, was able to create a reel and kind of send it out to schools in the area, which was last year. And then I found an agent. So I did an audition at ESPN for like the ACC network my year after I finished Syracuse. This was back like 2019. So I got my master's degree. And then at the end of the year, ESPN called and was like, hey, like, we've heard about you, see some of your work on AC Network Digital. Why don't you come in? And so the talent producer, Sean Wyman, was kind of assigned to me, like, hey, we like her, help grow and develop her, maintain the relationship. And a couple months later, he ended up leaving and going to Max Talent and Agency, and he let me know he was there. And so we maintained the relationship. At that point, I didn't feel like I needed to get an agent. I felt like I had enough connections with all the schools that I went to and the coaches that I know to email them and see if I could be an analyst on their broadcast. And then, once you get a couple of games and you do well, people just give you a couple more, and I kind of just like ride that wave a little bit. But I came back to Sean like a year later when I felt like, okay, like, I want to do this. I think I can be good. A couple of my mentors are saying I need representation, or I should look into it. And you're somebody that I've stayed connected with, that has given me feedback, that has liked my work without ever getting a dime. And so I signed with him, and then he just kind of helped build me. He helped connect to some of the national networks. And so some of them I connected with through my own, through Syracuse and work. And then some my agent has pulled in. It's been a really nice collaboration.
like, I'm literally smiling because I don't think that, like, you get it. Like, that's the thing. Like, you get it. You got it. Like, so many athletes. Like, I'm so big on life after basketball. I'm so big on utilizing, like, we're at these schools. We're at these 4-year schools. Like, utilize the connections. Like, build relationships. Like, figure out, like you said, you was hurt. But you
Yeah.
did not just be like, okay, I'm hurt. There's, like, you figured out another way. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
athletes need to hear this. Like, I think
Mm.
it's so important. Like, you were building what you're doing while you were playing. Like,
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can't get no better than that.
I think what I think, Ashley, though, too, like, it's a scary concept.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, like, being totally honest, my parents at one point didn't agree with how much I was broadcasting. Like, maybe you should just focus on basketball. Like,
It's
can
hard. They don't
can
see
you,
it.
or like, can you, I mean, it's just their worry. Like, they want me to be
Mhm.
great at basketball, right? Because that's what I've dedicated and made the last 7 years of decisions worth, right, towards a basketball career.
Right.
And so I think for them, they wanted to make sure that I was still focused, and if you got two really good baskets and you're splitting your energy, it seems like you're splitting energy,
For sure.
and so I think I even experienced that for my coaching staff. One time being questions like, hey, are you still fully in it even though you're broadcasting? Like, yes. Like, why is it a foreign concept that I can't like two things and dedicate time to these two
The
things?
two
Like,
things.
especially when I'm a student athlete. Like, it was so funny. People are questioning, like, why are you taking your school so seriously? Like, I'm sorry. Like,
Student,
I thought
athlete.
I was literally brought here to do this. Like, so I say that to say, there are programs that will discourage you from getting a certain degree because it takes
Mm-hmm.
away practice time or the amount of things you need to do. But like that should not be a factor. You should have and play for a coach or be around people who support what you want to do outside of this career or afterwards and start building it now, especially when you have all the resources. Like a college, especially to be on a college team at Syracuse, like I had tons of resources. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't make sense for me to not focus on, what I
Yep.
wanted to do in the future while I was there, able to meet connections and find people to help me get forward, to help me grow. So yeah, I just would say like a lot of think athletes are faced with that, and my thing is just do both. Do
Yeah.
both. You will see yourself one day that you started as early as you did.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that. I feel like that's one thing when athletes and parents are looking for school, like
Mhm.
that is one thing. What are some other things you would say athletes and parents should take into consideration when choosing a school?
Yeah, great. I talk about this for days, and I'm starting to do like workshops on it because I feel like there needs to be some criteria, right, or some
Mm-hmm.
guideline that you follow, or some questions and points that you hit. But I think one, like, go where you're loved, right? Like this is about building relationships. It is not about going to the flashiest place possible, and I say that even knowing NIL and what's at stake. But I think people have to decide right now, what do you care more about, like your basketball career, your educational career, or the money you could be getting right now. That is a decision that all family and people have to make. Because then once I know that you care about the student part first and you don't really maybe want to play basketball professionally, cool, awesome. Then let's tailor our schools and things that we're looking at to that. So I would say knowing like what your priorities are. And if it's all three, then try to keep it as a blended all three, right? Where
Yeah.
wherever you decide to go, you are getting parts of those things that you like to fill. I think for athletes, paying attention to style of play, like watch the team currently, see what they're doing right now, see how players interact with coaches and vice versa. If you go on visits and you go during the season when there's a game, sit behind the bench. I tell all my players this: don't allow them to put you not near the bench. You
Mm-hmm.
want to see what the in-game action is like. You want to see what it would look like if they're coaching you in 2 years. And you can't do that from across. You need to do that from behind the bench where you can get a listening ear and see things that are going on. And normally that's a spot in which they should have tickets for. So you should be able to ask, hey, can I sit behind the
Right.
bench? I'd like to be as close as possible. You'll look great, but you also know you're trying to get inside information. Um, do your research, like talking to other players. I think, yes, this is a time in which people are so competitive, right? And there's so much like social media this and, oh, I visited here but I'm not committed and whatever else. But like, use people that you play with, talk to them. Hey, I hear you're getting recruited by so and so, do you like them? Hey, I'm here or there. Like, people are willing to talk and have honest conversations about coaches or their experiences if you are willing to have those conversations. Thankfully for me, like, I played at 4 different schools. I played in 4 different conferences. I'm from Jersey and I broadcast across the country. So for a lot of my clients, I'm like, ask me about this coach. And if I don't know, you best believe I can text 2 people immediately who can tell me what they
Right.
think, what they know about their experiences. So don't be afraid to do your research. Like, we wouldn't take anybody's word for it. Right? Like, we look at reviews all the time. So if I'm going to buy like a new makeup product, I'm not just saying like, oh, okay, it looks great on Ashley, so I'm going to buy it. I'm also going through the reviews. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, what does this look like? What has people's problems been? Go and do reviews of these coaches, of these programs. Hear what other people have had to say that either have been through it or are talking to them currently. So you don't make a mistake of not having enough information and then making a informed decision. Like, not having enough information is not an excuse in this day and age. You
Yeah.
can have conversations, you can do the research. So I just would say doing the research, going where you're loved, go where somebody has built a relationship with you, and then go with a plan. Know what you want to get out of this 4 or 5 year career. Know what opportunities you want available to you and make a plan and find a place, a program, a team, an area that supports you in that.
I love it. I love it. You said you've been to 4 different schools.
Yeah.
Um, I want you to talk about that a little bit. I feel like obviously the transfer portal is portaling. And well, one, I even want to go there. Like, what are your thoughts on the transfer portal in general?
Man, listen. Okay, so my first year of college was 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Last year of college was 2021. Right? There was a big change during those years. Big
Yep.
change. Like biggest change ever. So in 2014, 2015, 16, maybe 17, if you were in the transfer portal, you were the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
People were like, "Oh, she can't play at Florida. She had to come to Syracuse," but you were the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It does not exist like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people transfer for so many different reasons, and we know that coaches have also become the problem,
Yeah.
right? Like it's both sides. And so now when you see people transfer, you don't think twice. I agree that you should not have to sit the first time you transfer. I do believe that once you transfer the second time, you should have to sit.
Yeah.
I think because it becomes at a detriment to maybe you and your student part of your experience. Like, are you getting the degrees if you keep transferring to 3 different places, right? I went to 4 different schools. I have 3 degrees. 2 of them are masters. So anybody who's
Ooh.
didn't finish whatever. No. I went to schools. I got the degrees and then I moved on. But so if you're doing that, fine. But I think there are people who have transferred 2 or 3 times and then can barely make up credits at the
Yep.
end to graduate from wherever they're going to. That's not the goal either.
And are losing credits.
Or losing credit. Exactly. So make it make sense. But that's why I feel like the second time you should have to sit. And if that is to make sure that you finish school and you get ahead or you catch up, fine. But also that you get adapted and you're able to adapt to the new area that you're in. Like I just think that year isn't bad. I wouldn't look at it as punishment. I would look at it as like, okay, clearly you've been in an area that didn't work and you've been in another one that didn't work. Like let's make sure that this one works and give you some time to adapt. I think that for a while, coaches didn't have penalties for their transfer portal, right? When they left and hopped from place to place to place, there was nothing said about bad about a coach, right? We didn't
For
really
sure.
care. We were looking for the next opportunity. So I'm actually happy that athletes have the chance to like go and find a different opportunity and don't have the same penalties. But I do feel like I just feel like people need to know why they are transferring.
Yes.
We have seen so many situations. I could name names, but I'm not because I'm not going to like highlight someone's downfall. But players who, from a basketball standpoint, transferred from a program where they were doing well to a program that maybe was doing better, but then didn't get the same thing that they wanted, or didn't have the same opportunity, or weren't starting. And I'm not talking about one. Like I can name you probably 6 or 7 off the top of my head of teams I've called. I'm like, she's come off the bench. I'm sorry. And I'm thinking it's the coach, but I'm like, I don't know. Like, why did you transfer? What did you do it for? And then I know people who transfer because of academics, right? Or because they want to study STEM. And this coach is like, yeah, you can't study STEM and play on this team. We can't make our system around that. So I feel like people use a transfer portal for a lot of different things. I just feel like they need guidance and direction on what are you looking for and to make the best decision. And unfortunately, but fortunately, like some people are just making money decisions. I can't. No, I can't. Like you can't fault an 18-year-old who has a chance to make $250K in their first NIL year. You can't fault that. But yeah, I just would say to them, and I hope that there's like a support system around them to make them think that like, hey, okay, this money is great, cool. One, you got to find a way to sustain it after, right? Two, so if that's not going to be through basketball, then what other part of your life are we developing so that when you are done hooping, you can still maximize on this potential that you have in other areas? That's why I'm big right now on athletes building their brand, right? Like you hoop and you can get a bucket on the court and you're making money through NIL, cool. But are you also really smart? Do you also understand the stock market? Do you also know how to paint? Like, come on, let's maximize. Like,
do you know how to talk on camera? Do you know how to communicate? Do you
Come on, anything, so I just think now more than ever, there are opportunities for athletes to be CEOs, but like to be CEOs and not just in your sport, to be CEOs in other things, because people just want athletes as ambassadors for stuff.
For sure.
And so I just hope people are just having some guidance and using the portal and getting to what they want. If they are making money decisions, I hope it works out for you. But I just also want them to keep like their integrity in mind, and it can't just be about the money. It can't, right? Like you're too young and precious in the world and in a good situation to just make it about the money. You have to care about the education. You have to care about the resources around. You have to care about the alumni base. Like there's so many other things you can use to maximize. So if you make it just about the money, you're going to miss out on the other things that can really help you get to the next level.
Yeah. And you know what, Isis? I think the only, like, I agree. Like, I'm not against the transfer portal. I do think that there should be like guidelines within it. Like, in my
Yeah.
personal opinion, now obviously if coach get fired, if you're just being mistreated, but I don't think, I think there needs to be some type of rule or something for freshmen, because
Hmm.
I think that more than, like I said, the ones who just pick the wrong school at the end of the day. Outside
Yeah.
of that, like, I feel like a lot of freshmen leave because they're not used to waiting their turn. They're not used to they scoring 20 and 30 points in AAU. They're not used to scoring 10. Like, they're just not used to it. And they
Right.
think, oh, I can just transfer. Oh, this coach don't like me. So I think that that has to change a little bit. But the one thing that bothers me the most is the adults that are utilizing these kids for money for them. Like, oh, I'm gonna work this deal for you. Oh, I'm gonna do this. Oh, like, so many adults are putting kids at schools for their benefit.
Yes.
And that's the
Yes.
thing. I'm like, I can't stand it.
It's you're like the sixth person probably who has come to me and said that,
Hmm.
right? And normally then I get this immediate inclination to be like, okay, clearly we need more agents for the kids. Like maybe I need to become that person who can talk to the kid, talk to the family, blend it together, and help make sure that like there are some things that protect the kid and their wants and their needs, and the family still can reap the benefits. Because I still believe in some of these athletes right now and what they're doing. Camila Cardoso said the other day on WNBA draft, she said, I was trying to put my family in a better position.
Yes.
Like that's a woman saying, I was trying to put my family in a better position. So I know some of these athletes are in that situation. I think that's what sometimes we forget is take a step back from it. Like I came from parents who could pay for everything. I
Hmm.
came from parents who went on every trip, who were at every tournament, who drove, who flew, who did hotel. I come from parents who are around and had it. I can't imagine if I was 17 looking at NIL opportunities from schools and I don't come from and I come from parents who don't have it.
Right.
I come from parents who haven't made it to a game because they can't get to the game, because they have to work. Then the money and reason you're making these decisions and then people's influence and wanting the money looks totally different.
Different.
Dealing with people who maybe have never had it. You know what I'm saying? Seriously, like we deal with people who've never had it, who've never seen that kind of opportunity. So I do think there's a need for like NIL agents or someone just to protect the kid. Like I hate the word agent because it just comes with so much like nitty
Hmm.
gritty, and contract based, but there is somebody that needs to be there as an advocate for athletes to make sure that they understand the opportunities that are at hand, the money that they can set aside, maybe the money and percentages that they can give to family and have a system. Like I think that makes sense
Yeah.
because we're not responsible. Adults aren't responsible with money. So, like why would we think that a 17 or 18-year-old would be able to? And then why would we trust their parent who's an adult to be responsible with all this money?
Yep.
You know, we've seen it or not. Like it just logically don't make sense. I don't care how smart you are.
For
Um,
sure.
yeah, yeah. And so it always leaves that question for me, like, is that an avenue I need to go in? But as of right now, I just want to educate people like on what they can do with their brand, what they can build with their brand. I think the financial literacy and protection part for NIL athletes is what will come next.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, is what will come next. And honestly, it'll probably take a couple of circumstances that don't go well in the public eye for an NIL athlete to lose all this because they trusted this or whatever this, for people to open their eyes to that part of the NIL aspect, right? And to make sure that those things are handled.
Yeah, you just talked about education. You talked about what you're doing now. So let's talk about it. Like you said earlier, you had a business and things like that. Tell us about the business.
Yeah. So I started my business in June of 2023, last year, almost coming up on a year. It's called Your World Enterprises. And so what we do is we do media training for athletes, coaches, and teams. And so I've gone to like Princeton women's basketball before the NCAA tournament to like go and do media training in person and mock interviews to make sure that they feel prepared and they know how to answer questions. They can thrive in the spotlight. I work with individual clients one-on-one, whether it's middle school or high school, college, on how to handle live interviews, building their brand, social media management, ways to market yourself for opportunities. And then always just like college recruiting process tips, right? A lot of my clients that obviously aren't in college are looking to play at that level. And so giving just some advice on, maybe what camps to go to, what ways to connect with coaches, things to work on. And then I do like basketball training. So I do a virtual in which I do like film session reviews. So as a college basketball analyst, right, all I do is watch the game and then talk about it. And so I really enjoy, and it's become a big part of my business, like doing film session review with clients and athletes. So an athlete coming on.
Yes, we have merch available. Be sure to check out the site at itsjustdifferentpod.com to see if it's something you may like. All right, back to the episode.
We're watching one of their AAU games, picking out, hey, why'd you make this decision? What does that look like? This technique is wrong. We need to work on this, kind of stuff like that. And allowing them to see and analyze themselves and then tailoring our workouts to that. So I'll do workouts virtual. I'll draw up workouts and send them to athletes based on our film study and stuff. But film session has been something, and it helped my game. Like when I got to Syracuse, I really cared about film. And I watched so much film, it was ridiculous. But also my game took like 2 levels up because I could just see things a little bit better, that I had a chance to step aside and see them. Like, oh no, coach was right. I really wasn't there. Should have went earlier.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's nice to have that perspective. So we do media training, basketball training, and then broadcast coaching. I believe like our slogan is we pull as we climb. Like as we're climbing in our industries, as we're climbing in our careers, whatever, we are pulling people with us. Like that is how I was brought into the industries that I am. People pulled me as they climbed. So we aim to do the same. And so we do that with broadcast coaching for sure. So I have, broadcasters that are young, that are getting into it, that are looking for feedback or information or shadowing opportunities. And they work with me to get some of those reps, get some feedback, and try and, solidify their job in the sports media world, which is where I am. So it's like a 3-tier business. Everything is connected to what I do all the time. But the main thing that we really push is the media training. Like I just want these athletes, whether they're middle school, high school, or college, like to be able to articulate their thoughts and feelings in a specific way, in a purposeful way. And I thought watching the WNBA draft and these athletes are on air, right? And they're, asking about how their families played a role or what led to them getting here and what they look forward to. And some of these answers were, it's a big moment. So they're nervous, right? It's a lot going on. But some of their answers, I was like, that's an opportunity to push your brand.
Yeah.
That's an opportunity to say what you're going to bring to the table, or what else you want to impact, or, an Angel Reese to be like the first of your kind, right? Like there's an opportunity there when you're on air in the spotlight, all eyeballs are on you, to represent yourself well, but to also push your brand. And so I think working with athletes more to be more comfortable on camera, be more comfortable in the media, and just be comfortable articulating your thoughts and feelings. People are not going to know what you want unless you say it. They're not going to know what you're about unless you say it. Otherwise, you leave them to judge. And so I'd rather teach my athletes to be able to articulate what they're about in a way in which they love, and that's them, in a way in which I can watch them as their media trainer and clap and just be so.
I freaking love that. I love that. So with obviously I have the podcast, and like taking the last part of that, of just teaching them how to be on camera. I started the podcast in October, and we was kind of talking off camera, but I go to a lot of tournaments and I'm interviewing a lot of kids. Well, that started because I was at a tournament. My mom helps me set up, so I'll go set up at tournaments and I'm selling books and merch, all that stuff. Well, she was late. And she was late. And I was like, man, I'm about to just go interview people because I love talking to people.
Yes.
So JC, shout out to JC. JC was the first person. JC was walking by 2026. She plays with IFN. And I was like, JC, can I interview you? And she was like, yeah. And like that sparked, like I was interviewing her and she was just like, oh, that was so fun. I got to talk about other things. Like, cause I asked her questions outside of like how many points she scored, or like we didn't even talk about that. Yeah. So that tournament, I started doing it, and ever since then, like that, like the kids love it. And like that's me where I'm like, I noticed that a lot of kids are nervous. They don't know what to say. They think that they have to be like so professional, like, and they have to give like, and I'm like, you just have to be yourself, like,
yes, exactly.
And that has like, even me, like I'll tell them like sometimes I'm gonna mess up, but I'm just talking, like, and I think that's why people really like it because it's authentic. So it's like that. I love that you're doing it because I think that kids need, like I said, they need to know how to be on camera. They need to know how to speak on camera. They need to know, one, they need to know that they can be themselves. Like, you don't
Yeah.
have to be anybody but yourself when you talk.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
100%.
that has been so fun to do.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it just breeds confidence. We talk
Hmm.
about kids and like how kids struggle with confidence left and right, right? Like one day you're on top of the world, the next day think you hit rock bottom, and then you just realize it's Tuesday. Like I think when you're on camera, when you can articulate your thoughts and feelings, when you can successfully answer a question, like you get confidence from that.
Hmm.
Now with social media and stuff like that, people are sharing these things. Like if you're a hooper and a dog and a bucket on the court, and then your interview is also like thoughtful and interesting or personable, like people are gonna love you because that's
Yeah.
all we love right now, right? Is our athletes that we get access to. So I think it also just breeds confidence. That's what I feel like I want my athletes to have. Just have the same confidence you hoop with or you kick with or you whatever with, because I work with multiple sports. Like that's the same confidence you need to have when you step on camera and somebody asks you like, what aspect of your game did you work on this off season? Like
Yes.
have confidence in answering that.
Yep. I cannot tell you how many college coaches have messaged me about kids that I've interviewed. And like I said, we're not even talking about basketball points, but they've said that like, oh,
Yes.
like some of them, they were already interested in some of the kids. And they're like, oh, we've been talking to her, but we love to see that she said this. And we love to, or who
It's a
is this
recruiting
kid? And I'm
tool.
like, this is a recruiting tool.
Exactly. It absolutely is a recruiting tool. Absolutely. Absolutely. With all that's going on right now, college coaches want insight. They want to know who you are outside of like how you play. We've seen how you play a ton of times, right? And so I think through interviews, you can give people a glimpse. So yeah, it's a huge recruiting tool.
Yep. Yep. You've been talking about brand a lot. What age? Like, do you think it's a certain age kids should start to build their brand?
I think you start building your brand when you have social media. Right? Like, think about it. Like, you start building your brand when you have social media. So, if your kid is in eighth grade, they're 13, they have an Instagram where it's public and people can follow, they have a brand. What
Mhm.
they post is their brand, right? If it's all about friends and going out to the movies and hanging out and going to the mall, cool, that's your brand. If it's all basketball clips and highlights, cool, that's your brand. If it's a mix, which I advise everyone to have a mix, you should have
Mhm.
a mix. Like your personal social should be a mix of all the things that you do and
Mhm.
it or things that you do, period. Right? Hey, I go to school, I hang out with friends, I play basketball. Cool, awesome. Like that's what we should see. So yeah, I think that as soon as you have a social media, you have a brand. I've had parents who, have asked, should I have access to the account? At what age should they just have access? At what age should they know what to post? And I truly feel like at 13 years old, somebody could mess up their career if they really wanted to. Like
Mm.
if they really wanted to and didn't know, they can mess up their career as early as 13. If you have social media and you're posting things you shouldn't be.
Yep.
At the age of 13, though, you can also receive your first college scholarship because that's when I received it. So that's
Mhm.
why my answer is like eighth grade, 13. And by that time they have a social media and other people follow, then you should be invested in like what their brand is. What are their interests and just start there.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
and by the way, parents that's always asking me these questions, book a call with Isis. Y'all here. book
Slide.
a call with my girl. So I want to like talk about that a little bit more because parents are always asking. And I mean, nowadays you have third graders, fourth graders who have Instagram accounts. Now, most of them, their parents are running it.
Yeah.
But they want to know, like, I literally, not kidding you, had a third grade parent come to me, was like, I'm trying to get some NIL money. Like, what do I need on this? Ma'am, she's in the third grade. She's a third grader. Post these clips. I don't know.
Exactly. She can't even spell endorsement. Come on. Come on. Come on.
I'm so confused. But I also then have some parents who, I mean, you pretty much just said it, whether that's hanging out with friends, whether that's clips, but some of them, they want to try to keep the pages separate because they think I just need a resume of the clips. College coaches want to see that. Like, are there any other tips, advice that you would give those parents who are trying to figure out how to mix it? How much should they mix? What that should look like?
Yeah, for sure. So, a couple of things. One, I think as much as our parents are serious about where they want their kids to go, right, with the sport, like make sure that your athlete is also in agreement with where they want to go with the sport, right? Like that they want to have the opportunity to play in college or they want to take it seriously, right? Or they want to play on a travel AU team if they're not there yet. Because I think at third grade, it's kind of young to really know, but like, hey, you're taking it serious. Like I was playing AAU in third grade. I knew it was a consistent thing I was putting time and energy to. The second thing that I would say is if you're doing social medias and you feel like your athlete isn't at a mature point where they can understand like what maybe a brand is, how that other people's social media is public, so anybody in the world can see and comment. If you feel like you still need to protect your child in that way, then I would say like share the account with them. Then I would say be on the account with them, right? And so allow them to say like if they take a cool picture with friends and they want to post it, like be with that, right? Because it's their brand. Maybe they're trying to figure out different things. I think as they grow and maybe are doing more stuff, then you can shade them towards what this looks like, or what has done well. So I would say starting there. I'm an advocate for posting like all hobbies, all interests, all things. I don't care if they won the spelling bee and then they were like the softball champ and whatever else. But their main thing is basketball. Like post it all. Show the versatility, right? And what they do. It's not a bad thing. They're kids. Like we still have to approach it from that perspective, because you don't know what building their brand can look like if you have all these sports. Maybe you do all these sports now and you think they're going to be a basketball player and they decide to go to Syracuse and go to Newhouse and be a broadcaster. Well, now they have a background in playing all these sports and now it totally makes sense because you've told the story the whole time. So I just would say that. But I would say until you feel like your athlete is mature enough to manage the social media with no help and they understand what they're posting, what they're saying, that everyone can see, that college coaches are looking and they're approaching that age, then go from there. I think someone can understand that at like age 12 or 13. I think at 12 or 13, you can for sure understand the seriousness of playing a sport and what it can look like, especially now in the age of NIL. And I'd say maybe anytime before that, manage the account with them. So that way you can teach them. And that way at a point in which you allow them to manage it themselves, you're not worried. You're doing it because you've done it together.
Yeah.
Social media is super important. So I can't knock any parent who's like in third grade, right? Their kid is 9 or however, I think you're 9 in third grade. And they're like, we want to do a social media. Like, that's cool. People are watching. Like, it's fine. I think just keep it generic. And then as they grow with their seriousness about this, you turn and like make sure that their brand reflects that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Let's get into high schoolers real quick, because I'm around a lot of them a lot, and I'm talking to them about like just different things that they should be posting and how they can utilize the game of basketball. I'm talking to basketball players after sports, and a lot of them, the first thing they say is, "Oh, I'm just focused on basketball. Oh, I'm just focused on basketball. I don't have time to build a brand. I don't have time to do this." Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like if you've got time to play basketball and post about it, you've got time to build a brand. You've got time to let people know what you're about. But it's a real question because I've had a lot of athletes come to me and say, an athlete I worked with, she's a hooper, wants to play at the college level, and was nervous to post like her fashion. Like she likes to get dressed when she goes to school or like, hangs out with friends or whatever. And she's kind of nervous to post like more of her fashion. She's like, yeah, I just don't know if like people really care, this and that. Stop. Hold on. First of all, who is people?
Who is right? That's the one.
We don't care. Like you push your brand and you know that people see, but your brand is about you, right? It's not about people, like I don't really believe in like give the people what they want. Like, no, you're going to get whatever I give you because it's my brand, And so I was like, if you want to show your versatility and show that you do fashion, do it. I was like, and from a social media person, like tag the brands that you use. Maybe that's really cool that like a high school hoops player in Jersey is wearing something from them, right? And wants to post about it. Like, who cares? But I was like, I think your brand is whatever you want it to be. It's whatever aspects of your life that you want us to know about you, that you want to show, right? You can show it in a multitude of ways when people meet you in person, through social media, when you're playing in games, right? You can build your brand while you're playing in games. I care to know if like you're a player that dives on the floor for a loose ball. That's part of your brand. Somebody be like, oh, okay, she's a big gritty. Let's go. I'm going to pick her up.
Yeah.
So I would say, not to be shy and to not make your brand about what you think other people like. You make your brand about what you like, the hobbies and interests that you care about, the things that you want other people to know about you. And you kind of do that in a thoughtful way. I definitely don't think that it has to be as professional as people think it is.
Yeah.
I think like TikTok content and all the reels and funny stuff and this and that is perfect. I believe that anything that you repost shouldn't have curse words or slander in it. I just think like anything that anybody says that's profound that has a curse word, you either can say yourself without the curse word, or you can just leave it where it is and just trust that people will see it, right? But like, you don't want to repost those things that are attached to your brand, and now we think that like you think it's okay to curse, right? Or is this your speech every day, especially if we don't know you? So I advise against that. And I just would say like use social media as a networking platform, right? Like if you're in high school, follow the other people in your county, follow the other people on different AU teams, follow the coaches if they follow you. Like it's a community that you're building. You never know when this player will go to this team, and then now you're thinking about going to this team, or they talk to this coach and you're thinking about going to that school, and now you want to connect with them. And if you already follow each other on social and maybe like a bit here and comment here, you built a relationship. Like that's how simple it is. So I also say like use social media as a networking opportunity. Like you just use it as a networking opportunity, a networking tool to reach out to as many people as you want to, or to connect. And I don't mean reach out like you have to DM everybody. I literally mean like following somebody, like liking and commenting, saying congrats. Somebody posts a highlight reel, give a couple of flames and call it a day. But they know that you're interacting with them, right? That's networking. Like that's a form of building relationships. And I just would say no, that people are always watching. There are a ton of athletes that coaches just scroll all day. They just do a little social media day, like, hey, we're just going to check on this person, this person, this person. Let's see what they post about. Let's see what they do. We're going to check on their friends. We're going to check on things that they've been tagged to. Be careful who tags you. Like, if people who are tagging you in different content and different things that represent your brand, remove the tag. Like, guilty by association still exists on social media.
Oh, that's
Yeah. I think we don't always think that, but like if Cousin Pookie ain't the greatest and Cousin Pookie is all pictures, we might want to, tell Cousin Pookie, hey, chill out. You're not really great for the brand. Happy you're home, but like, come on. Like, who knows? Who knows? I'm for real, y'all. For real. It's real stories. But like these coaches look at these things. I'm telling you from experiences and talks to coaches, I get calls all the time like, hey, tell me about this athlete. I saw you ran across her, or she was at the showcase. Did you notice her? Blah, blah, blah. Like it happens all the time. We pay attention to these things. So I just would say, know that people are always watching, whether they follow you or not. Just because your page is private doesn't mean that anyone can't see it. It's the facade. So don't believe that. But yeah. And like be responsible. Like just know people are watching.
I love it. We done talked about broadcast. We done talked about building a brand, and we done talked about all the highs of it. What would you say is the most challenging part of both? Two parts. So of building a brand and of being a broadcaster.
Okay. I think challenging parts about building a brand is just being authentic, maintaining your integrity, right? Again, like what you post for your brand is for you and not other people. I think quickly we can try to make it seem like we want to look like other people. We want to be other people, but like it's about you. So I just would say being authentic. I kind of use this when I talk to broadcasters a lot, because people will always ask like, do you change your voice? Or when you get on air, like, do you flip a switch? Right. And there are people who do. There are people who do, y'all. I do not. I'm like the ISIS that I talk to on a podcast, in my apartment, walking down the beach, in the studio, at the game, is the same person every single time. It's the same person every single time. Like I believe in authenticity both ways. And so I think because everything runs through social media and online and stuff like that, your authenticity in person is at that much more value, that when we meet you in person, it seems as though, we've met you. Right. So I just would say like, be authentic, have some integrity. Because I think that can get challenged when you're building your brand. And just don't be concerned with, the likes or the reposts, right? I think if like sometimes we have low numbers, you don't have many followers as someone, and so you get discouraged. Like, who cares? Like you're building the brand, you're pushing it out, people will see. The key about social media is not necessarily how many people like it. It's about the consistency in which you are posting, right? And that people know that something is coming. And so I just would say, kind of focus on that. But again, also focus on you're putting information out for people to see, for not for them. Like it's your information, right? That you're deciding to share. And so, yeah, it's your information that you're deciding to share. So I would say that's, challenges with building your brand is like the integrity, not being like everyone else, finding a way to be uniquely you and like stick out. And then just also with your brand, again, guilty by association, just making sure that you have good people around you, making sure that those that are tied to you, that are working with you, whether it's like, your teammates or your coaches or the organization or those around you, trainers, that they're good people, that they reflect you in a good way, that when they speak about your name, people are coming back like, yo, so-and-so is tied to you and they're not doing the right thing. Like, you don't want that. You just want to make sure the people that are tied to your brand reflect you and your brand. And that's in every sense of your brand, your family, your friends, your teammates, all of that. Challenges about being a broadcaster right now: credibility, easy, like the first
Oh
one, right?
yeah.
Making sure that you know your stuff, you know your information, that you studied a team, you can pronounce someone's name correctly, right? Like, you're thoughtful on how you interview players and the questions that you ask and the stories that you're trying to tell and what stories you're telling. So I think just credibility, for sure. I would say authenticity, right? Like being the same person on camera as off camera, right? I'd hate for somebody to be like, ah, man, I met her in the middle of Times Square and she just was not how she seemed on TV. Like, oh, like what? Hold on. Like, like I think authenticity is so real. Jamel Hill is the one who told me that. I was trying to think of who did it, but Jamel Hill is the one who told me, like, who you are on TV needs to be who you are off television. That is important. And then I think too, just knowing your worth, as a broadcaster, and some of the work that you can take, especially as freelance, you have to know what you're worth. You have to know, what spaces and rooms that you can be in, that you want to be in, that you can push for, the people that can help along the way. And just making sure that you advocate for yourself. It is an industry in which if you do not speak up, like, closed mouths don't get fed. And so advocating for yourself, making sure that your work reflects you and your brand. And then I just, yeah. And then I just would say, like, not getting caught up in the politics. There are politics in everything. And so I think most of the time we get caught up in politics because we start worrying about what other people are doing. Like,
Yeah.
ooh, she got this gig. Ooh, they got that gig. Why didn't I get that? And then, oh, she got that. It must be because she's best friends with her. Like, stop. Focus on what you're doing, your opportunities, the things that have come to you. What is for you is for you. When you start worrying about somebody else's stuff is when you get sidetracked. That can be an obstacle in the industry, right? Because it's so competitive. We all want to be at the top. We all want to be talking to you every day on TV, right? We all want to be the main voice that you retweet. But at the same time, understanding there's room for everyone on so many different platforms, and your integrity, your credibility, but also just your trust and knowing your worth and knowing where you are and believing in where your feet are planted is so important in this industry. I think you get so sidetracked focusing on what everybody else is doing.
I love it. I love it. I promise we could just go on and on, but I definitely want to be respectful of your time. This has been an amazing episode. You are dope. You are doing amazing things. I love to follow your journey. I will continue to follow your journey. But I just have to say that I need to give you your flowers because
You too. You too. Thank you for creating the space, for conversations to happen, for continuing and wanting to give back to people in different ways through education, through conversations, through coaching. Like, thank you for the work that you're doing. It means a lot to have Black women in multiple spaces on multiple sides of sports, and then being able to touch the youth. Like, God knows, like, they need guidance, they need feedback, like, they need help to get to
for
this next
sure.
level. The level and the things that they're dealing with are at a magnitude that we weren't dealing with.
Yep.
So the village, we just want to support. So I just want to shout out you for, like, supporting the youth and how you're doing it.
I appreciate it. Before we end, we got a little rapid fire.
Ooh,
We're gonna get right
okay.
to it. Best game you have covered.
Oh my gosh, easy. It was Ohio State upsetting Iowa in the Big Ten regular season. They stormed the court afterwards. It was at Ohio State. So they stormed the court after. Cody McMahon had, like, a career high, I think 33 points. It was this season. And yeah, it just was, like, one of the few times I got to see Caitlin Clark in person, obviously. So that was fantastic. But one of the few times you saw, like, her lose, and, like, what it took for a team to upset them. And they hadn't lost in Big Ten play at that point. So by far, I was working sideline for NBC, and it was, like, the coolest experience to be there.
Wow, love it.
Yeah.
Best
Yeah.
basketball movie of all time.
The best basketball movie of all time. I honestly think Love and Basketball.
That's
Yeah, I
mine.
don't even think it's close. Like, I feel like I don't know, anytime I need a little uplift or something, like, that's a go-to movie you could just put on and you're just getting, like, substance, like a classic.
That's my favorite movie. If you
Yeah.
could change anything about women's basketball, what would it be?
Ah, I would just put more teams in WNBA. That's it. That's it. I think the college landscape is good. It's in good hands. I think the W just needs more teams, and then we can watch more of our college stars play more, and then we're good.
Side note, what were your feelings about the draft?
Oh, draft was good. Chicago, it is up, Chicago. Oh, I think
Yes.
Chicago will be like the hungriest team, like Marina Mabry, Dana Evans, who's hungry and like ready to get a real role in the W. Obviously Camilo Cardoso and Angel. Like I can't imagine what practices will look like, but them on the same team. Izzy Harrison as well, who's become
Yeah.
a good front court player in the league. Love Izzy. So I just think they're going to be like a hungry team. And then, Therese Weatherspoon, like she gets a chance, right? Like to be a head coach in the W where she played, where she was and is a legend. It's just a lot of firsts that are happening for that organization right now. But I think they're just going to be hungry. They're just going to be some dogs. It's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah.
And then, oh, sorry. I feel like I had another surprise that I really. And then I love J.C. Sheldon going to Dallas Wings. I
Yes.
Yes, I like the roster that they've built. I hope that she makes the team. I think she's a much needed guard for them. And I just think they needed some other depth in the guard positions around Arike. And then hopefully you help, you need Satu to get healthy and to be healthy. But I'm excited for their roster as well and what it can look like.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Where do
Yeah.
you see women's game growing to within the next 3 to 5 years?
Perfect. 3 to 5 years. So I would say on the college landscape, like NIL is just going to be more widespread, right? It's going to hit more sports, more players, not just on the basketball side. Like I think it's going to hit more sports. I think there are other women's sports that are kind of willing and ready to take off. And so I feel like NIL is going to be more widespread, but especially across women's basketball. For the WNBA, again, more teams. I'm hoping that in 5 years, if we're getting one team in 2025 and maybe a second, that by like 2030, there are 18, 19 teams in the 18 teams in the W, right? I think that would be really, really cool. There's 12 right now. So that's a little lofty, but let's do it.
Yeah.
And then I think just more money and more investment into the game. These TV deals and rights. I tell you what, y'all, as a broadcaster, I'm so excited. I'm so excited because I'm like, the more money that is coming to women's basketball means the more eyeballs that are getting to it, which means the more time is going to be on TV, which means the more broadcasters they need. The product that is on the floor. And so I just like through Yahoo Sports, like having us at the Final Four, right? That's something that they haven't done, but there's an investment now in women's basketball. And so they need more people represent the game well on that side. And so I'm just excited for more networks, more opportunities to be created, some more consistent things to happen. And then I also think that there will be a women's big three. I think Ice Cube is getting there.
Yeah.
But I have faith that he'll get there. I think that could also be a really cool moneymaker and league to do.
I love it. Last one. What would you tell your younger self right now?
There's always going to be resistance when God is calling you to become. That's what I would tell my younger self. Like anytime that I've experienced some type of resistance or obstacle or thing that I had to get through, it was because on the other side of it, like there was a door that God was willing to open. So I just would say, like, anytime you're met with resistance or an obstacle, rather than complain about what you have to go through or what needs to happen, be excited that on the other side of all this work that you have to put in to get through this is going to be some fruit. And just to be excited about that. And I've just experienced fruit after fruit after fruit.
That was a message to young Isis and a message to Ashley right now. Oh, I needed that. I needed that. All right, that was young Isis. Now we're gonna talk about Isis in the future. What will be different about Isis, whether that's you personally or your business, whatever, within the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think it'll be the business. I think I'll become the premier media trainer for serious athletes. And I'm going to leave it there at serious athletes. So whether you were serious in high school and want to get to college, whether you're serious in college and want to get to the pros, whether you're a serious pro and you just want to stay a pro, I think we'll become the media training hub for athletes, coaches, and teams who really want to maximize their time on camera, who really want to learn how to build their brand and just make sure that what other people are seeing, the audience, the viewers, that they are bought into you. And then I think personally, I hope in 5 years that I am married and having kids. I hope that I'm starting a family. I very much believe in having a balanced life. So I love my career. I love owning a business, but I also want to be filled in that other way and have little ice cubes running around. So I hope that's a plan in 5 years.
Okay. Is Isis dating now or?
I am not dating. So isn't let me not do a shout out on this podcast right now to eligible bachelors. We're not going to do that. But no, it's just me and Jesus right now. But I have to say, to be honest, like, as it is, when you're working and you're juggling and you're hustling, sometimes that area of your life you just do not pay attention to.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm just trying to make sure again that I stay balanced and not just I'm always in my work. I'm always in the business. Like you got to also invest in people and in yourself. And so, yeah, that's an area that I hope in 5 years I've fulfilled.
Yeah, I love it. Well, this has been an amazing episode.
Thanks.
Isis, if you could tell the people where they can find you and if you can leave a message, whatever that message is on your heart to whoever it's for.
Yeah. First, I'll start with my business. So we're at Your World ENT. Your World ENT. Yep, on all socials. So Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever you need, we're on that. You can follow us for a lot of our content on like how we work with our athletes, different interviews that we're doing, different teaching techniques and things like that, and then workshops. We do a number of workshops throughout the year for parents and athletes. If you're interested in getting more information about things we talked about today, building your brand, social media, live interviews, college recruiting process and advice, let me know. And not just for basketball. We do this for other sports as well. So if you're interested, let me know in that. My personal, everything is pretty much Ice.33. Honestly, just, thank you for having me. I think all the things that I'm doing, all the things that I do are things that I love. And I just was very intentional while I was building out my career to make sure that I built it out in things that I love to do and I love to invest in. So I guess I would say for the young athletes talking to you right now who maybe haven't gotten to college yet, and you're thinking about what you want to do, like just continue to think about what you're interested in, what you believe in, what things you naturally gravitate towards. And then we can build a plan for you to hopefully live in that or have a career in that or monetize that or push that forward, especially if it's outside of the game.
I love it. Make sure y'all like, follow, subscribe. Do all of that. Share this out. Every athlete, whether that's basketball, soccer, softball, it does not matter, needs to hear this episode. They need to hear this episode. We will continue to bring you guests week after week after week, and we'll be back next week.